Hey all, Heretic here. Patch 31.4.2 drops today for those who are using desktop. For those on mobile, it'll drop today, just not at 1 p.m. Eastern. It'll drop an hour or two later. You know how the mobile thing is. It'll happen when it happens. But we've got a lot of changes to the Battlegrounds we're going to be talking about today. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a new mechanic for you. I'm not trying to butter you up and gonna wait and be like, I'm not saying anything. There's no new mechanic. What we have is a lot of minions being changed, buffs, nerfs, removed, added. That's kind of what we're doing today. What I imagine, this is the prep to get you ready for the new thing. Some of these changes might not even make sense for now because they're really in preparation for the new thing that's about to happen. Or at least that's the cope I tell myself. Let's jump right into it. First, we need to talk about the update itself. We're going to start with a dev comment, and this is, there's a lot of changes this patch with the general goal of providing more options for play. We did this by lowering the power of some popular cards in strategies like Block Prince, Ultraviolet Ascendant, and Beetles, while buffing some of the underperforming archetypes like Demons, Dragons, and Naga. We also brought back some old favorites to open more synergies. We have more content on the way and are looking forward to sharing more soon. See you in the tavern. No longer quote, but old favorites. Yeah, I don't know about some of these, but you tell me when we get into them. Maybe they're your favorites and they're just some of my nightmares. Now to the minions that will be leaving with this patch. Outback, Smolderer, Razorgore the Untamed, Arcane Cannoneer, and Murky have been removed from the minion pool. Not huge deals. Smolderer was definitely interesting. You never really wanted it for itself. You just wanted it for the tokens it made. Razorgore kind of worked with Smolderer, so by removing these two, I mean, you don't have as much synergy, so that works for itself. Arcane Cannoneer had moments where it was brilliant and other times where it was kind of crap, and Murky's kind of the same way. So huge deal with any of these leaving. But now for the returning minions. Now, mind you, not all of them will be returning as the form I'm going to show you here. They'll be returning in new and improved forms. Slither Spear, Lord of the Gains, Salty Hog, Amber Guardian, Hawk, Strider, Herald, and Stormbringer have been returned to the minion pool, all with adjustments. Those will come later. Let's start with those minion changes and see what we got. Forest Rover going from a 4-2 battle cry, your beetles have +2/+1 this game. Death Rattle summon a 2-2 beetle to now a 5-2 battle cry, your beetles have +1/+1 this game. Death Rattle summon a 2 beetle. Obviously, we don't really care about the attack on this minion. It's about the buffing it does to your beetles itself. This could be very impactful. They'll have a lot less attack. But that being said, as you see later, there's other ways beetles are being changed. So while this is a nerf, the question is it a nerf that matters? Ruined Progenitor goes from being a 2/7 Avenge 4, your beetles have +2/+2 this game. Death Rattle summon a 2/2 beetle. Now being a 2/8 Avenge 3, your beetles have +2/+2 this game. Death Rattle summon a 2/2 beetle. Obviously, this is a buff. It has just one more health, but that makes it a little harder to kill. And it gives the exact same buff, but it's Avenge 3, which means it's significantly easier to do. Previously, we have seen beetle boards just kind of ignore Progenitor and just go more Rylak and Forest Rover. It'll be interesting to see if this will promote a meaningful change in it. I suspect it will, but once again, it depends how early you find it and what your other options are currently on your board in your shop, but it at least has some more potential now. That is a big difference in the Avenge ability to actually get it to trigger. Turquoise Skitterer goes from being a 2/4 Death Rattle, your beetles have +1/+2 this game, summon a 2/2 beetle, to now being a 2/5 Death Rattle, your beetles have +1/+1 this game, summon a 2/2 beetle. Obviously, this is a nerf because they're getting less health, and because the Turquoise Skitterer has more health, he's ironically now less likely to die, giving you the trigger you want at times. Yeah, typically he's still gonna die. Later in the game, obviously he's dead, but at least initially this could be annoying when you miss a trigger here and there. Get that early Titus, you're all excited, your Turquoise Skitterer somehow lives with 1 health and you get no value. We'll see how it works out. It's still gonna be viable, just a little less. Hawkstrider Herald's triumphant return. Well, it used to be start of combat trigger all friendly death rattles. Is now going to be new start of combat trigger your 2 leftmost death rattles. Now clearly this is a nerf. Before you could have 6 death rattles, 5 death rattles, Titus, be happy, and just trigger like crazy. Now you're only going to trigger the 2 leftmost. So it just means you need to think about positioning. You're still going to get the 2 key death rattles you need more than anything to trigger before anything happens. So I'm not sure if this still isn't going to be ridiculous. And the issue with this now we know is that it triggers just death rattles. It doesn't hold itself to say just beasts. So this allows it to synergize with other tribes and other minions that can be problematic, like they have been every single time this damn card has been put in the game. Obviously, it's not gonna be as effective as it once was. The problem is it's still gonna be damn effective. We'll see if it's the terror it once was. Archimond used to be tier 4, 4/5. After your hero takes damage, rewind it, reduce the cost of your next tavern spell by 1, but not less than 1, to now being a tier 5, 5/5. After your hero takes damage, rewind it and reduce the cost of your next tavern spell by 1. I have thoughts on this. It is clearly a buff. Got higher tier, that's kind of a nerf. It's got 1 more attack. Now it can reduce tavern spells to 0, which is fantastic. This is what hurt Archimond when they changed it to not less than 1. Made him a lot less viable in demons overall. Problem is, it's at 5, there's less of them. You still gotta get it. You've got the issue where if you happen to be playing demons already, by now you've probably got a soul rewinder that's decently statted, then now you gotta try to figure out when you wanna cut that. Obviously you don't need both them on your board doing the same job. It's semi-redundant, but it's hard to sell that minion if it's big enough. I just feel like this damage prevention and self-damage is still kind of the issue with demons that they can't get around. Have this thing where it's either you're killing yourself constantly because you can't prevent that damage, or then you're preventing it and it's almost kind of a meaningless thing, and then you have statted minions that are stupid, and I just am not a fan of where demons are right now. This will make them certainly more playable, but this in no way makes me want to play demons right now. It's very meh. Big Brother's seeing some changes. Used to be a tier 3, 4/3 taunt after you cast a tavern spell. Minions in the tavern have +1/+1 this turn, but now it's a tier 4, 5/4. After you cast a tavern spell, minion in the taverns have +1/+2 this turn. I still don't love this. Now that it's at tier 4, there's less of them in the pool. It's still casting spells to buff my shop. Then, I mean, it's just the thing that demons aren't playable. It feels like till tier 4 and 5. That means I gotta roll kind of into all them and then decide, oh yeah, demons are the way to go. And I just don't want to do this. It's certainly better than it was, but just, I don't know. What do you think? Do you care about this? Does this make you excited for demons? Or is it just more of the same? Hychondrius goes from being a 3/3 after your hero takes damage, give your demons +1/+1, to now being a 3/6 after your hero takes damage, give your demons +2/+1. I mean, once again, demons not seeing much play. I don't know how viable this is actually be. It's certainly a buff, and maybe all these accumulated buffs are making you excited and see how the builds work. I just not am sure I care. But, and here we go, Tychondrius. Nether Drake, huge change. Goes from being tier 5 to tier 4. Exact same stat line. Exact same ability. Just a tier lower, there's more of them in the pool. You can start leveling it up faster. Dragon players rejoice. Amber Guardian used to be a tier 4 3/3 start of combat. Give another friendly dragon +3/+3 and divine shield. Now is going to be tier 3 3/2 start of combat. Give another friendly dragon +2/+2 and divine shield. Card is great. Playing dragons, the chance to have divine shields is of course wonderful, and the ability to make them permanent is second to none. You just know it's never going to land anywhere near your poet, so you're never going to get them to be permanent. It's going to always just miss it. Prize Promo Drake goes from being tier 5, 5/4, start of combat, give your other dragons +5/+4 to now being tier 4, 3/3, start of combat, give your other dragons +3/+3, which I'm pretty sure was the previous form of this to begin with, so they just reverted it to what it once was. It's had a few forms. It's easy to get confused about which one it might have been previously, right? Stormbringer was a tier 4 1/9. Now it is a tier 5 1/14. If you've started recently, you might not have seen this. It's after a different friendly dragon gains attack. This also gains it. And yeah, this can get pretty nasty and scale ridiculously high. And now with the ability to easily add permanent divine shields to dragons, yeah, we're going to see some big, hard-hitting dragon boards. Will they have a ton of health? Not typically, but they'll have divine shields, so at least those first swings are going to be painful. Hunter of Gatherers goes from being tier 4, 3/6 whenever this gains attack, give your minions +1 health, to now being tier 5, 3/5 whenever this gains attack, give your minions +2 health. Still like this dragon. Unfortunately, there'll be less of them in the pool. They'll be harder to find, but they're still going to do the job, and you're still going to enjoy it when they do it for you. Not so much when your opponent finds one. Dune Dweller, still a 3/2. Used to be when you sell this, elementals in the tavern get +1/+1 this game. Now it is going to be a new battle cry. Elementals in the tavern have +1/+1 this game. Now, still not exciting. 3/2 stat line is not insane value, but the fact that it's a battle cry certainly makes it more attractive. If you're playing Shutterwalk, you're playing Bran, you're super excited to see this. So at least this card goes from being an utterly dead card that nobody wants to just being a mostly dead card that most people would like to see removed and are curious why it's still here. Meteorite Crasher used to be a 2/4 after you sell Elemental, gain +2/+2. Now it is a 2/3 after you sell Elemental, gain +3/+3. It is clearly a buff. I'm perfectly fine with it losing 1 health because when I'm selling them, they're gaining more health and attack. So this still works. Great minion. Like, I'm not surprised I am kind of surprised they're buffing it. Because when you cycle enough, it clearly gets big enough already. It just has a hard time competing with what some other elementals do in the lobbies to keep it having a space on your board, but it's still one of the better statted elementals at the end no matter what. So kind of surprised they buffed this. Nomi Kitchen Nightmare. Old, after you play an elemental, elementals in the tavern have +1/+1 this game. New, after you play an elemental, elementals in the tavern have +2/+1 this game. I don't think this in any way makes me want to play Nomi any more than before. I'm sorry. I just don't think this is viable. I mean, we'll just make Nomi a hero, right? Make his hero power unlocked on tier 4, and when you play elementals, they get +1/+1 this game. Why the change to this minion that doesn't really need to be there, that just kind of bloats the pool? I mean, maybe you're all excited and this is gonna be what makes Nomi good. Something tells me no. Hell no. Nomi still sucks. Ultra Violent Ascendant. Old, 5/3, start of combat, give your elementals +2/+1 upgrades after you play an elemental. New, 6/3, start of combat, give your other elementals +2/+1 upgrades after you play an elemental. Now, not gonna buff itself. Probably means if you have 2 of them, they'll buff each other individually. But yeah, you're gonna have a dead card on your board. I'm not really sure it's enough of a nerf to matter. Because, okay, say you run one, the gold one, it's given like 60/50, you know, whatever. Something crazy. And yeah, you have 1 small minion. The rest of your board are just giant elementals. It's not like you don't see as many brands running on these boards, especially late in the game. So it's not like when you see a Death Rattle board has to have Titus. Most Murloc boards need to have brand to be functional during that towards the late portion of the game. This elementals don't super need it. It helps brand, but it's not a must. So I'm not sure this nerf really addresses the whole problem that it just buffing the entire board other than itself now with that many stats. It's essentially a weak bump minion now, which kind of puts you on par with other boards, but you're still gaining a ton of stats. Maybe the difference is just not buffing itself. but something tells me elementals are still gonna be still too good. Hollow Rover used to be a 3/5 divine shield whenever this attacks get a random magnetic mech, to now being a 4/8 whenever this attacks get a random magnetic mech. And the difference there is, if you missed it, divine shield. It doesn't come with it built in. That means you either need to put taunt divine shield on it and then remove taunt, or just hope you swing first. I think this is a pretty good nerf to Hollow Rover, which makes me sad because mechs don't really have much going for them other than a Hollow Rover. I mean, yeah, you get Juggernaut early, that's great, but you better also find yourself a Drakarian Chanter. So I'm not sure. I mean, yeah, there's this nerf mechs. Yeah. Does this potentially just nuke them from orbit? Yeah. Doesn't feel good to me. What do you think? Marquee Ticker used to be a 3/5, is now a 1/5. Now, how do we feel about Marquee Ticker? I always would buy it pretty much. As soon as I got to tier 4, if it was there, I would scoop that up. It was a good stat line. It gave me a spell every turn. It was kind of a no-brainer. Now that it's not really going to help in the combat, I am going to be a little more hesitant to take it, but it's still going to be a decent card. Just getting a spell every turn is pretty good if you find this early enough. We'll see. Bubble Gunner goes from being a 3/2 to a 2/3. I honestly feel like this is a buff, not as much as a nerf, because yeah, it has a little less attack, but typically when you're losing with this, it's just stupid things with death rattles. Now you're more likely to survive that initial hit, so you actually can get some value out of this thing. I think this makes Bubble Gunner at least a little better when I'm trying to calculate if it's good in the lobby I'm looking at. Barry Gillmother goes from a 2/5 to a 1/5, and this is kind of the same thing as Marquee. It's something I would buy quite often as soon as I got to tier 4. As a 1-attack minion, I'm a little less hesitant, but it's still giving me a Murloc every turn. If I know I'm going Murlocs, if I say happen to be a hero like Flurgle, obviously there's still some viability just because the extra card every turn, so I think this still has some pretty good potential. And it's Murlocs, we can buff it really easy. King Bagurgle goes from being a battle cry, give your other Murlocs +3/+4, to now being a battle cry, give your other Murlocs +3/+3. Apparently that 1 health was just way too much. They needed to bring King Bagurgle in line, so they ripped that 1 extra health off him. And now, oh, Murloc players, you're screwed. Young Murkeye goes from being an at the end of your turn, trigger the battle cry of the minion to the left of this, to now being at the end of your turn, trigger the battle cry of an adjacent minion. The dev comment, and this is primarily a quality of life change. So yeah, now your Murkeye can be on the right or left of the battle cry minion it'll trigger. Just be careful you don't have 2. Make sure you're sitting next to the one you actually want to trigger. And yeah, if you're sitting next to 2, it's just gonna be a random one, so good luck. Lock Prince goes from being a 2/2 divine shield whenever this gains stats, add +2/+2 to that amount wherever this is, to now being a 2/1 divine shield whenever this gains stats, add +2/+1 to that amount wherever this is. I mean, it's baseline health, we're not really concerned about it. 1 health there. It's the 1 health extra you get every time you buff them. I still think because of the divine shield, because of how easy it is to buff Murlocs, this is still going to be a damn good minion. Maybe this just makes it a tiny bit smaller so you have a better chance to survive it. We'll see. Corrupted Myrmidon used to be tier 5 4/4, now a tier 4 2/2. Myrmidon certainly isn't seeing the kind of use they used to see this thing all the time, all over the place, buffed to no end. Getting it earlier makes it a little easier to buff it and make it actually be more viable. So its baseline stats I don't care about at all. I'm perfectly happy with it being at a lower tier, so there's more of them in the pool. If I can actually get some buffs to stick on this, so it permanently scales. We'll see. Slither Spear, Lord of Gains. Oh, the Swole King himself. Used to be a 4/6 at the end of your turn. Give your Naga +1/+1 improved each different spell you've cast this turn, to now being a 5/6 at the end of your turn. Give your Naga +1/+1 improved by each different spell you've cast this turn. Now I want you to look at the decision making we have going on here and scratch your head with me a little bit. I understand the stats aren't a 1-to-1, but we just looked at the Ascendant getting nerfed from buffing the board and itself to Slither Spear being re-added to the game to make it not just buff the other Naga, it also buffs itself. So they've just gone the opposite way with two different tier 6 minions. One which just requires you to cast different spells, which seems very easy to do. The other one which requires you to actually cycle elementals, which is at times very easy to do, but if you don't hit an optimal board, you certainly can fail. It's easier to cast random ass spells, right? I'm a little confused about the decision-making process. I guess maybe Naga are just doing so poorly, they're like, let's just let Naga shine for a minute because they suck. And I guess that's a fair statement, but it just seems weird to stop doing one thing and immediately do it somewhere else and say it was in the name of balance. Almost seems like a really poor decision. Tell me. Dual-wield Corsair goes from being a 4/7 to a 3/5. I have no real idea why this change was implemented. It seems like a change for the sake of saying we did something. Did they have a minimum quota of changes they had to make? Did they have one extra one and they had to spend it? So they're like, well, let's just use it on this one. No. I mean, dual-wield Corsair is good, but I don't think it needs that nerf. I don't care if you triple into it. Is it that crazily statted? I mean, I felt like it was kind of viable. I mean, I guess this puts it in line with more other tier 5s, kind of, but I mean, we just had tier 4s with 3/5 stat lines, so weird decision. Pirates kind of need help in my mind, but maybe not in theirs. Rapscallion Recruiter, they've kind of missed some of the changes here, but sure. Makes me wonder if I missed any of their missed changes, but used to be a tier 5 9/3 Death Rattle Summon 3 Scallywags. It is now a tier 4 6/2 Death Rattle Summon Scallywags. They kind of left out the Death Rattle change part, and that's kind of big for why this is good. Its initial stat line is still fine at 6/2 at tier 4, that's great. It summons 2 3/1s, that's fine, but that's what we use this for, is to summon lots of more pirates to make Exodia pirates work. Interesting change, but I guess pirates are suddenly overperforming somewhere I haven't been playing. Sky Pirate Flagbearer goes from being a tier 4 4/4 start of combat, give your other pirates Death Rattle, summon a 1/1 pirate, it attacks immediately, to now being a tier 5 5/5 start of combat, give your pirates Death Rattle, summon a Scallywag. Now note, Scallywags do not attack immediately is a no-brainer because the Scallywag is a 3/1. If it also immediately attacked, it would then Death Rattle and summon a 1/1, making this an incredibly busted, amazing combo already. Wishing I was Greybow playing this so I can really milk the value, but quite the change there. The juxtaposition of flipping these two minions and then making one seem really disgusting, but not instantly good like he was before. We're definitely gonna have to get some games in to see how it works. And these are definitely going to get in the way of the other some Death Rattles, but not often in Pirates. So it's going to be fun to see. I think this is going to be interesting change. It's going to be kind of a 50-50 thing, because yeah, you're not going to attack immediately, which means you lose a lot of value, but then you're getting another Scallywag. So if you have any way to have time to get them to get hit or attack, a lot more Death Rattles to summon out. Yeah, this could be disgusting. Salty Hog's back. Yay! Salty Hog used to be tier 6, now he's tier 5 with the same ability of whenever you add 3 cards to your hand, give your other minions +1/+1. Still a Quillbore Pirate. I mean, this card seemed potentially great to me when they first announced it. Then we played some games and you're like, oh. Maybe at tier 5, it will be. But it wasn't. So maybe it still won't be. We'll see. Pretty Headhunter goes from being a 5/4 to a 4/2, still with the same battle cry, get a Marauder's contract. Still a great pirate. Yeah, not as amazing, but fine. Still damn good pirate. I'll happily play and cycle like crazy. Boar Gamer goes from a tier 4 3/5 to a tier 3 2/4, and that's kind of awesome. You've got a card now at tier 3 that's every turn going to give you another choose card. I think this is great. I have no complaints at all about this. Thorn Trailblazer goes from a tier 4 5/6 to a tier 3 4/5, and that's going to be a big thing. You're still going to want to pick this thing up. That one choose card each turn has both effects combined is pretty amazing. Tier 3, that just means there's more of them. They're easier to get. We've already seen the Boar Gamers at a lower tier also. Good change for Quillbore. and just people want to play choose cards in general. It'll work. Fearless Foodie goes from being tier 3 2-4 to tier 4 3-5, which is always kind of actually a blow to Quillboard because you need this to scale those early blood gems or generate some you need desperately. Now there's just less of them in the pool. It's harder to do. It doesn't feel like a great change, but there's a lot of other changes going on here, so maybe in the end they'll work out. Oaky Thornmantle goes from being a 6-6 at the start of your turn, your blood gems give an extra +1/+1 this game, to a 6-7 at the start of your turn, your blood gems give +1/+2 this game. Still shit. Sorry, language, I know, but come on. The problem is the start of turn. The end of turn was too strong, but start of turn is useless. You're just getting this card too late. The +2 health helps. This is just a band-aid on a shotgun wound. Doesn't do the job to fix this minion. It's just not. And Scrolled Fungus is still the same, except instead of being tier 5, he's tier 4. Same base stats. Every time you cast a spell, he gets better. I mean, it just means more in the pool. So when you have that spit spell and you're like, oh, I want to get rid of this fungus and I want to get those stats on my board, you're more likely to find the fungus. So there you go. Inspiring Underdog goes from being a 2-1 battle cry, give your minions from tier 3 or lower +2/+1, to now being a 3-1 battle cry, give your minions from tier 3 or lower +3/+1. Still a decent card when you're in trouble. Still gives you a lot of tempo. Now it just gives you a little more attack, which feels good. No complaints. Atrocity, basically the same. Little nerf to it. Used to be a 7-7, Death Rattle Summon a 7-7, improved by each friendly minion type that died this combat. But now it's a 6-6 that summons a 6-6 that's still improved by each friendly minion that died in combat. So more or less the same. It'll have a little less stats. Still perfectly fine if you triple into it early. So Arid, little nerf. Menagerie Jug goes from being Battle Cry, give 3 friendly minions of different types +2/+2, to now being Battle Cry, give 3 friendly minions of different types +3/+3. It just goes from being a 6-6 buff to a 9-9 buff. Better. No complaints. Magnanimous went from tier 4 to now tier 5. It's duos, so I don't know. I mean, I'm less of them, so obviously they were problematic. They didn't change its effect or stats, so everything's fine. The effect is what works, so he's still gonna do his thing. Loyal Mobster goes from being a tier 5 4-3 to being a tier 6 6-5. Again, duos, I don't know, but there we go. Storm Splitter, little change. Used to be tier 4, now tier 5. Same ability once per turn after you pass a tavern spell. Get a new copy of it. Still doing its thing. All right, finally, we have a couple bug fixes we're going to address. We've got fixed a bug where Board Gamer could be targeted with Efficient Engineer's Battle Cry, even on Board Gamer's off turns, correctly but disappointingly resulting in no effect. I'm gonna say I'm losing my mind here maybe, but I'm pretty sure Board Gamer isn't one of those cards that has an off turn, but it says off in quotations, so I don't know. But did they mean a different minion and I'm losing my mind here? I'm pretty sure Board Gamer works every turn. Who knows? Maybe this is a bug that needs to be fixed in me or them. Fixed a bug where Golden Inspiring Underdog gave the wrong stats buff when paired with Brand Bronzebeard. Now, I haven't seen this, but that would drive me kind of crazy if I actually spent the gold to triple it and then it gave the wrong stats. And unless the wrong stats were like 10 times the stats it was supposed to give, in which case, woohoo, no complaints. Updated Catacomb Crasher and Thundering Abominations animation when triggering multiple times at once to avoid associated performance issues. Now, I have some high hopes here. So I had a combat where I did not edit it. I just let the whole thing play out. We didn't skip it. It wasn't my combat. For my side of the board, it was my opponent's, and it went 7.5 minutes long to do the combat after doing all of the triggers from the combined effects of both boards. And yeah, by the time it was done, I was in combat again, and the game was over. Probably by the time, the game was essentially done. There was nothing happening at that point. But it's like, hey, maybe animation shouldn't make it so if I'm playing an APM board, I auto lose. And if you're playing an AFK board, you just go walk around the house and make a sandwich. Just feels like an unfun way for your game to be possibly designed Don't ask me. I mean, I'm not even a content creator. What do I know, folks? That's it. That's all we've got. That is everything in this patch. What do you think? Are you interested? Are you excited in this? Is this going to help kindle some excitement for you in this mode? Or are you so just burned right now and just tired of it? You're waiting for the next hot new thing. I get it. I'm kind of burned out when I look at these changes. It just seems like more of the same to me personally. I don't want to influence you to feel bad about it, but my take on it is it changes, but I just don't care. I kind of want the new thing. This has just been going for a little while and I'm tired of it. Little exhaustion on my part. My bad. They probably want us to go play their other modes, but no thank you. I have zero interest in that mode. You could give them all to me free, every single card gold, and I still really wouldn't want to play that mode, so no, I'll pass. But thanks for watching all. I hope you had fun. I really want to know in your comments if you like this, if you're happy with these changes, or if you empathize with me and you're kind of like something else. I mean, if you're excited, I want to hear it because maybe you'll excite me into thinking this is great. I hope so. I really do. I want to have a good time. You could please like, subscribe, all that good stuff. It helps the channel grow. I know I have been putting stuff out at a much slower rate because there's nothing new and I'm just kind of burned. I'm kind of waiting for the next new thing. There's going to be a lot of new content when that new thing is announced and when I know what it is, because I have no idea at all right now. And I wish I did, because I would probably be a little more excited while I'm reading this to you right now if I knew something exciting. Thanks for watching all. I hope you had a good time. I hope to see you in the Battlegrounds. Until then, have a good one. Later.